Hello. Hopefully this works. I'm super tech challenged. I am Jamie Chapman, and I'm going to be presenting on expressive arts therapy. Hold on, let me get this in slideshow view. Again, thank you for your patience. Trying to connect and it's not working. We're going to just do it like this for now. So expressive arts therapy was created by Natalie Rogers, who is the daughter of Carl Rogers, who created person-centered therapy. Both person-centered therapy and expressive art therapy share the same key tenets. They share the same beliefs about how clients are viewed, and they share the same beliefs on how change takes place. So the key tenets are that clients are trustworthy and they're resourceful and that they're capable of doing the work that they need to do to heal. And Natalie, on top of this, recognized that all people are capable of being creative. And growth is achieved through self-awareness, through emotional awareness, and there's a focus on the phenomenological world of the clients, their experience, their emotions, their emotional experience. And they really, the goal is to help them work towards realization and autonomy. And she recognized that the creative process really can be part of that healing, and that she believed through different artistic expressions, such as movement, drawing, painting, sculpting, music, writing, sound, improvisation, that clients were able to discover themselves through emotional depth and creative expression. They are able to process and uncover emotions in deeper ways. One quote by her, which I really resonated with, was that we express our inner feelings by creating outer forms. And change really does take place in both person-centered therapy and expressive art therapy with through the client-counselor relationship. It's really key. The counselor must be genuine, show unconditional positive regard, acceptance, and empathy, which helps the client feel safe and accepted. It helps the client gain courage and capacity to explore their emotions and experiences, their beliefs and values, to move toward that realization, that fulfillment, and that autonomy. And Natalie really added in the artistic expression as a method to help her clients process all of these. She recognized that our emotional states are seldom logical, and the use of imagery in both verbal and nonverbal modes allows the client an alternate path for that self-exploration and that communication. She started to use expressive art therapy with several of her clients, and that she recognized that her own clients, their communication, their self-understanding increased, their communication between her and the client improved, and it was easier for them to process heavy emotions through, or it's often easier to process their heavy emotions through expressive play rather than just talking about it. For example, she found that with movement, with improvisational dance, that it begins with a feeling. And as the mover is moving, they become aware of that feeling, and then they fully experience the feeling in their entire bodies. They transform the feeling, which helps them understand the feeling on a deeper level and really integrate the feeling. And I found a really beautiful example of this in one of the articles I read about Laura Sanchez, and her story is that she was from Spain, and she had a background in flamenco dancing. and she moved to the UK and took a job in marketing. And within this new culture that she found herself, she was experiencing micro-racial discrimination at her work every day, which started to cause her to conform, and be really fearful and anxious. And then she realized as she was conforming that she was starting to lose her identity, which brought even greater fear and greater anxiety. So she started to just do her flamenco dancing on her own every night after work in her apartment. And she learned that, or she realized through the dance, that it helped her process her fear and anxiety. It helped bring her joy and peace that she had lost, and strength to reconnect to her cultural identity and not lose herself. I found a lot of other really beautiful examples. This art therapy, expressive art therapy, can really be used with all populations and all people of all ages and all cultures. Natalie Rogers herself used this when working through the loss of her dad. She used expressive art therapy to help herself process that grief and loss. And I already told you about Laura Sanchez and how the dance, and Natalie Rogers, by the way, she used painting and visual arts to help her process her grief and loss. And Laura Sanchez used movement and dance and music to help her alleviate her anxiety and fear and reconnect to her identity. And then another really beautiful example that I found, which I really loved, was a group of elders in China, and they were able to process their life and face their death. So a group of social workers in China worked with a group of elders in a culture it's culturally frowned upon to talk about death. And so they use this expressive art therapy, both visual arts and movement, to help this group of seniors process their life and prepare for death. And if you remember, Erik Erikson's final stage of development is integrity versus despair. It's where an individual faces the end of their life and they look back at their experience, and they look back at their life, and they're able to look back with pride, and a sense of accomplishment, and really integrate those feelings. Or they look back on their life and they have regrets, and they see they have trouble finding meaning then for their death, which then they fall into the despair. So the social workers used expressive art therapy to help these elders both with verbal and nonverbal movement, art, to process their past memories, past moments, to face their thoughts and then to face their thoughts, feelings, and beliefs about death in a culture that it's really not talked about. And so they reported that the movement really helped their old bodies with aches and pains, which elevated their moods, and that they enjoyed looking back at their life and processing these memories and moments that so many had forgotten, these big moments in their lives that actually brought them a lot of joy. And so they were able to represent that moment and memory through art. And then they were able to then share with their families when it's frowned upon to talk about death with their families. They were able to use these art pieces as a way to have a conversation and to bring kind of unity and communication with their families when they're talking about the end of their lives, and give family blessings before they passed on. And then finally, one really interesting article that I read about the neuroscience findings, Dr. Thompson and Dr. Jacques really explored how the autonomic nervous system reacts in various states of creativity. And you'll remember the autonomic nervous system is either the sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, which has been added to not just fight and flight anymore, but also fawn and freeze is there as well. So it's what gets your body, it's a triggering, it's gets your body moving quickly. Or the parasympathetic nervous system, which is just your relaxed state. And they found that when people, both doing brain scans and MRIs, that when people were in a deep creative experience, they were totally focused, totally engaged in the pleasurable activity of creating, whether it was, they looked at athletes and visual artists, and it calmed their nervous system, bringing them into a deep calm and a deep peace. And especially if you consider some of these emotions that are being processed are painful and are hard and are negative. And so if your nervous system is calming down while you're just being creative and expressing even the negative emotions, then that's transforming those negative emotions into positive emotions. Here's my references. And I just want to close by reading a really great thought here by Natalie Rogers in her book on expressive art therapy that really sums it up well. I believe we are all capable of being profoundly, beautifully creative, whether we use that creativity to relate to family or to paint a picture. The seeds of much of our creativity come from the unconscious, our feelings, and our intuition. The unconscious is our deep well. Many of us have put a lid over that well. Feelings can be constructively channeled into creative ventures, into dance, into music, art, or writing. When our feelings are joyful, the art form uplifts. When our feelings are violent or wrathful, we can transform them into powerful art rather than venting them onto the world. Such art helps us accept that aspect of ourselves. Self-acceptance is paramount to compassion for self and compassion for others. Thank you so much for listening.